Hey friends, I'm Laura with The Cozy Tree, where we make cozy goods and share biblical encouragement with others. Welcome to my series, Crochet Basics for Absolute Beginners. Now that we have covered the basics in lessons 2 through 7, we're going to explore some other stitches that are useful to know. Today's video is going to cover how cluster stitches work. I'm going to show you step by step, slowly, multiple times so you don't miss it, and then show how it looks when it's done faster. I'm going to be honest, these kinds of stitches have all sorts of names, and the word cluster can mean something different in different kinds of stitches. The ones I'm going to talk about are clusters of 3 double crochets. These are most commonly found on granny squares and blankets. Sometimes it's called the granny stitch. So let's get started. Here is a crochet swatch, which just means a test square to test out your stitches before you jump into a project. This swatch is done in different kinds of clusters. I've alternated the colors for each row just so you can see where the rows connect. The first 3 rows are the kind where I double crochet 3 times into one stitch, and the last 3 rows, so these are first 3, the last 3 rows are the kind where I connect 3 double crochets from 3 stitches. And that's kind of confusing. I'll explain each one. So let's first learn how to do these first 3 rows. So for my swatch, I first chained 14 and then single crocheted across. You can get a refresher on both of those in lessons 2 and 3 of the series, where I cover how to chain and how to single crochet. And then I chained 3 at the end here, and that's actually going to count as a double crochet for the next row. And then I turn to the project. Now to get this row going, I'm going to double crochet into the same stitch that I just chained from. So let's just go ahead and do that real quick. If you need a refresher on how to double crochet, that is also in the playlist as well. So because of that chain 3, it looks like 2 double crochets in this one stitch. Now we're going to skip 2 stitches. So we're going to skip this next one and then the one after that. And we're going to do something in this 3rd stitch, this 3rd V. And we are going to crochet, double crochet into this 3rd stitch 3 times. So just a normal double crochet, nothing special. So we're going to skip that stitch, that's skipping 2. We'll jump to this 3rd one, and we're going to double crochet 3 times into that same stitch. So there's the first double crochet, and the second double crochet in the same stitch, and the 3rd double crochet. Now sometimes on a pattern this would say 3 DC, so 3 double crochet. And that is a traditional cluster or granny stitch. There's no need to chain in between each cluster because the ends of each double crochet will actually count in line with those stitches that we skipped. So let's do it a couple more times. I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches and then double crochet into the 3rd stitch 3 times. Oops. If I can yarn over, I'm kind of wrapped around here. There we go. 1 in the same stitch, 2, and in the same stitch, number 3. Okay, that's the next cluster. So see how it's kind of making groups of double crochets. Okay, and so we just need one more cluster of 3, and then I will show you how to finish the row. So skip 2, and then in that 3rd one, double crochet 3 times. Okay, so those are our traditional clusters of 3 double crochets. Now to finish off the row, I'm going to skip 2 and just do 2 double crochets in this last part, which is similar to how I did on this end. So I'm just going to go in this last V here, if I can get it in there. It's not going to focus. There we go. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets. Now here's the thing, I'm going to go ahead and switch my yarn color. So before I pull through these last 2 loops, this is a tip that I learned, is I'm going to bring in my other yarn color, and I'm actually going to pull through with that color to start the next row, and then kind of tighten that. Okay, and now let's start the next row. So with my new color, I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and again I'm changing the color just so you can see better. Then I'm going to turn, and sometimes you got to tighten the yarn from the previous row a little bit. So that is going to actually just be the chain 3. We're not going to do another double crochet in it because that counts as a double crochet, and we're going to be alternating spaces as we go. Not sure if that makes sense, but now I'm going to go ahead and double crochet 3 times like we did before, a cluster, into this empty space right here. So not in between any loops, just in the empty space. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and now you've got your cluster for the next row. And so we're just going to keep doing that as we go down the row into each space from the previous row. So I'll go slowly for the next one, and then I'll just finish out the row. So in this space right in here, so don't go up here between those 2 loops, go down in this space and double crochet 3 times. There you go, there's a second cluster. All right, so after you've done that last space, we're going to double crochet 1 time into this little gap here from the chain 3 of the previous row. So that's going to act as the end of the row to maintain the correct number of stitches across. And you know what? We're actually going to change the color. So since I didn't do that yet, I'm just going to take my hook out, gently pull, put my hook back in, and start that double crochet over so that I can pull through with the other color in these last 2 loops. And I'm actually just going to go ahead and trim this yarn that it's connected to from the previous row, and we'll tie those ends off later. So I'm going to get my other color and pull through the rest of that double crochet. And that's our new color for the new row. So with our new color, we are actually going to chain 5. This is basically a chain 3 for double crochet plus 2 for the space we're going to need. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to turn our work. Okay, now we are going to double crochet halfway into each of these 3 stitches. Let me show you what I mean. So we're going to yarn over and start a double crochet in this, but don't pull through the last 2 loops. Now we're going to yarn over and start to double crochet in the next stitch, but only pull through those first 2 loops. Then we're going to yarn over 1 last time and do the same thing, first 2 loops. Now you have 4 loops on your hook. We're going to yarn over and pull it all the way through. And that is the opposite double crochet kind of cluster. So let's do it one more time. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then start to double crochet, only pull through those first 2, yarn over, start to double crochet, only pull through those first two, yarn over, start to double crochet, and only pull through those first two, then yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. Okay, and there's 2 of that kind of double crochet cluster. So I'm going to finish out the row. 1, 2, and pull all the way through. Okay, and then for this last little bit, we're just going to chain 2 and then double crochet into this gap here to close it out. And I'm going to pull through with my other color so you can see. Okay, so that is a row of the opposite kind of 3 double crochet clusters. Now with our new color, we're going to chain only 2 because we're going to need it to connect to the next 2 double crochets, or the next one, I guess, for this part. So I chained 2, I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to go ahead and just double crochet from there and finish that out. Okay, so that's that first, like, starting of the end of the row cluster. Now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to do it in this chain 2 space from the previous row, where we're going to start to double crochet, start to double crochet, and start to double crochet. You got 4 loops on your hook, and then you pull through. Okay, so there's another cluster. It kind of starts to look like the opposite of that one. So they're really just the opposite of each other visually. So it's nice to know both directions when you're needing to use cluster stitches. So I'm going to do it one more time in this gap, and then I'll finish out the row. So insert into the gap, the space there. Start to double crochet 1, 2, and 3, maybe. And pull all the way through. Okay, so there's that, and I'm going to go ahead and finish out the row. And then this last one, we're just going to do the cluster with 2 double crochets instead of 3. And there you go. So let's recap. In these first 2 rows, I did the traditional granny stitch. So the cluster was 3 double crochets into 1 stitch. So there'd be 1 stitch here, 3 double crochets stemming from it. And then in the next row, I did 1 gap here with 3 double crochets stemming from it. Then in this next 2 rows, I did the opposite, where I partial double crocheted into 3 separate stitches, so that when I pull through at the end, it's just 1 stitch at the top here. And then I would chain 2 to create that extra space for the next row, where I would do 3 partial double crochets into this gap here. The chain 2 space is what a pattern would call it. And then pull through all the loops to end with 1 stitch at the top there. And then I chain 2. So that is how you do those different kinds of cluster stitches. And Once you've mastered these, following patterns using these is going to be much easier and really fun. You can make all sorts of blankets and granny squares and all sorts of things. So remember that all of these lessons are saved into a playlist on my channel called Crochet Basics for Absolute Beginners. Make sure to save that playlist for easy reference in the future. And in the next lesson, we're going to cover how to crochet in front loops only and back loops only. These are really useful skills to know in lots of different projects. It opens up a whole world of lots of different kinds of stitches. So make sure you subscribe so you can be notified of new crochet patterns and tutorials. And I hope you found this helpful. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!